today I wanted to return back for the quest to autocraft a majority of our components that we use on a huge quantities most of the time. So what we're going to do now is we're going to work on a one wide tileable dyed glass crafter so that we can craft a large quantity of these if we need to. For example, we use a lot of even just regular clear glass. We could also use a lot of black, gray, white, and all of those types of glass for some spawn proofing for certain types of builds. Whether it's to fit the theme of the decoration, we probably should have a way that we can do this. And then obviously we won't build each individual one here. What I'll do at some point again is make a mass crafting area. So that way we can easily go to that one location and craft it automatically wherever we want. So the whole idea today is to get one that is one wide tileable for the mass quantity crafting, as then we can also just adapt that for whatever color we want just by swapping out the dye we would use for the inputted glass. So the one thing with the glass is that we will have to unlock the bottom hopper to allow 8 items to pass through, because just like concrete, we get 8 crafted items per each crafting sequence that we have. So this will take a little bit of time and delay for the unlocking. I don't want to use hopper minecarts for this one, as it just makes it too simple to do. And obviously a lot of hopper minecarts that are just statically unlocked could pose an issue. So I will only resort to the hopper underneath if I really cannot think of absolutely anything for this. Then I will use the hopper minecart, but for the time being, we will try to make a design using hoppers and everything like that. So yeah, it's something we haven't done for quite some time. I wanted to return to this to refresh myself on autocrafting and just add another autocrafting to the one wide tileable family that I have created so far. So yeah, let's click onto a time lapse of me actually building this and we will go from there. All right, so the end of the time lapse, you did see that we finished the complete design here. So that I did test at the end. It did take me quite some time. The time of that time lapse there was actually 3 hours for this design right here to finally be done. So a bit more than I really anticipated the design taking. However, I knew this would take quite a while because of the unlocking process and everything like that. Because we need to allow 8 items to go through the hopper, which is quite a bit of delay, which you can see on this side here. And then we also had to reuse this circuit on the left here, but not make a constant loop of it. So we needed 2 separate individual circuits that combined into one, in a sense. That's the easiest way I can figure out how to explain it. So this is our version 1 of this. Now I can see to my left, I do have more designs. This is the one that we did in the time lapse because that was my first attempt. As you can see here, we got 7,385 stained glass per hour with this design. Now that's not too bad, to be honest with you. I mean, yes, there is definitely faster 3-wide designs, but it is 1-wide tileable, which was the challenge I was really going for. And yeah, so let's turn this one on. We'll see this one in action. So this one should all be functional here. There we go. So you can see the long delay we had. So I thought I did also add this to Autocrafter, makes it be a little bit faster. Is the input started as quick as I could get it with this signal here. This is the earliest point you could really get a workable signal from. Most of you guys do know I like to include an internal clock, not have an external clock. Personally, that makes the crafter more versatile, in my opinion, which is mainly the goal for this. But yeah, so this crafter right here, 1-wide tileable, 7,300 per hour. Which is not too bad at all, but of course, I wanted to make some adjustments the moment I woke up in the morning. I was thinking about it, not while I was sleeping, but before I went to bed and started to lay down. I started looking at this, and I didn't want this glass block to be here, because technically you need a supporting block here for the crafter, so I didn't want to have that there. So I may have spent another hour trying to get rid of these 2 glass blocks, but I think it was worth it because I will see in a little bit that we have it in action. So let's look at the whole sequence here. There's a lot of moving parts in this crafter, but that's what has to be done with this sort of recipe. It is a very simple recipe, besides the fact that we get 8 crafted blocks in the output compared to the normal 1 block that you would get crafted as well. Something else I took into consideration when doing the redesign, the rewire. Wasn't really a full redesign, just kind of a rewire of the bottom section here. I wanted to make all of the items that are used in survival friendly as possible. So the fact we only need 2 composters, I wanted to get rid of that. Mainly this one doesn't need to be a composter. We just put an extra dropper right there, and that's all fine with that. And then this one I wanted to get rid of as well. And then this one comparator I wanted to get rid of, just for the sake of not needing to carry around, you know, that if you weren't to build this in survival. Therefore, less material, different materials you need to gather. And it all in all just makes it a little bit easier to do. So yeah, this is that first version 1. And then after another hour of me waking up in the morning, this is the version 2. Now, as you can see, they're very similar, besides this bottom section right here. This left's a little bit different, but it's not too much different compared to the bottom right section here. So this version 2 mainly decreases the recycle period as well as adding enough delay for the unlocking part down here. We also got rid of the composters in those 2 locations. This one we could replace with the redstone block because we are not pushing this redstone block upwards, for in a sense. If we were to do that, obviously that would bud burst QC the piston here, which then would not be ideal, which is why you mainly see people using composters if they are going to push the block up like that, because the piston can do that. And then you can take a composter read-in here, or a comparator read-in from the composter. That way you can create a circuit like that without the fact of needing a redstone block, which could cause some issues. But yeah, this one was a little bit difficult to rewire. Those use a bit more observers, but I think it is worth it in the end. There's a faster unlock. The first initial unlocking is faster here. So you pay close attention to this one. There's a bit of delay, like about 10 game ticks or so before the unlocking happens. This one is almost instant from the time that I could get it and it is basically the fastest you could do one wide tileable with a hopper, of course, not a hopper minecart. Yes, of course, you could use 2 different glass droppers and then 1 for the dies. Personally, I think this is perfectly fine. Made the wiring a little bit easier than I expected. Well, the wiring wasn't easy. Let's be honest. If it was easy, I wouldn't have spent 3 hours on the version 1 and another hour to adapt it on the version 2 here. But I think it made the wiring a bit easier because you didn't need to worry about powering 2 different droppers and stuff like that. And because worry about pulsing this one 4 times, that one once 4 times this one, and you're onto your unlock sequence. So you could probably make a faster one wide tileable one where you use a hopper minecart. Then you could also use 2 glass droppers and then 1 die if you really wanted to. But personally, this one's as far as I'm going to go for the glass crafters, as it just seems that I've made a design that works perfectly fine, that will work perfectly fine and just for us when we actually make a factory for this type of block. So like I said, the main rewire is down on this right side here. We have a faster initial starting sequence for the unlocking compared to this one here. Then we have a faster reset with the top part here. This is now a 1 tick. This is also a 1 tick. So we knock off 4 game ticks there. We knock off 4 game ticks there. And then we also have gotten rid of the 2 bottom blocks here. What we did instead is we used a dropper because it has a 3 game tick activating delay. That way we could also do that at the same time as add more delay and not power this stickiness in here. If we were to have an observer here, for example, we would also power the one next to it, which we don't want to do, of course. But then this would also then power this bottom sticky piston down here, which we don't want. So this dropper actually is very beneficial. And of course, we don't need another supporting block down there. If we were to put a note block here, this cycle would not work because it would be too fast. That's all thanks to the dropper activating delay there. You could also, you can't use a piston here either with this wiring because then obviously this piston down here would fire that one, which you don't want. So this dropper is very, while it might be very subtle, it is very key to this circuit actually working in the end. We also have a redstone block here with a 2 tick repeater down there that is actually very important. If we were this sequence here, if we were to have a 2 game tick or the comparator, this would lock it too early and then thus lead him a block inside this crafting module. And then over time, this would obviously fill up and then would break the crafter, which you would not want ideally. The only main thing to change on the left side here, I think we had a repeater down here. We just placed that with a note block just for a faster recycle time. Yeah, so the main difference is just this note block here for the left side. That's really the only main difference compared to that repeater there. Other than that, the other left side of the whole crafter is exactly the same as it was. So it mainly was down to this whole right side being, in a sense, rewired to make it a bit faster, but also a bit slower, which was the main goal for this. Because obviously that was 7,300. This is now a 9,000 per hour stained glass crafter. So that is the fastest you could do with a single hopper. Of course, like I said, you could use hopper minecarts and make a faster sequence. But in a one wide tile situation, I don't think that's beneficial in the long run. All right, so now we're going to break down each individual part of this autocrafter here. Obviously, this whole thing makes one current autocrafter, but at the same time, there's a lot of different components in here that could be confusing, and there is a lot of moving things at once. So I want to break it down for you. That way you can kind of understand what's going on here. So this part here is our item input for the crafter. So this top one here on the left is for the glass, and then the one on the right here is for your dye. You want to have this go to a shulker box unloader, which you could very easily do, and there is enough space for you to fit 2 individual one wide tileable unloaders here without needing to go over the length of the crafter itself, meaning that it is very easy to fit those on top of it within the current length of the autocrafter. But yeah, if you need some frame of reference here, we'll have the schematic here, basically breaking down where this part is in the schematic. So this one down here goes here. The reason why we can't go straight down here is because we need these 2 observers here for the powering of the top dropper here. So what we actually do here is we QC this dropper here. This has to be a dropper. You cannot put a barrel or anything in there, or even a hopper for that matter. This has to be a dropper. And this QCs that, which then this observer can see, which then QCs this dropper, powering it in just the right game tick. So that way this your die gets inputted into the actual center, which is what you need for this recipe. All right, next we have the glass item input circuit. So we basically have these two different individual circuits working together as one in a sense. So we send the first one, which we use the same circuit once, and then use it again. That way we don't have to do two separate things and make it a little bit more difficult than it needs to be. So first we need to do 4 glass, then the die, then 4 more glass. So if we power this here, you'll see we'll get 4 glass. There's a very small 2 game tick gap in between these inputted blocks here, which is the perfect amount of time we need to input our die for the glass. You can see there's a very little subtle delay there within the input of the 8 glass that allows us to perfectly squeeze in the die for the needed crafting recipe for any of the glass types. So yeah, this circuit right here, what does that? You'll see here, this one goes down here first, which then powers this, which starts the first sequence here. You don't know why we're using pistons here with the observers. If you were to quick pulse power a piston here with an observer, for example, you will see that this will give us 2 pulses compared to the normal 1 you would have gotten. So it's a very quick thing to add to this. And so the reason why we get 2 pulses is because it detects the retraction, or the extension and the retraction, compared to if you have a test down here, which would be just the extension. Another useful thing with this piston method is that if you combine them together, each piston you add adds an extra pulse. So because we have 1, 2, and 3, we get 2 pulses, 3 pulses, 4 pulses, which is what we need exactly to power this dropper 4 times. So this will give us the quick 4 pulses right there. We actually clear this out, put a note block. We get 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we power it again, making use of QC right here, so that we get the 4 extra glass in the recipe. This little circuit here has enough delay. So it's just enough delay in between the 2 inputs of the glass that we can input the die within that very short time window for the crafting sequence. Next, we now combine what we have with the glass input together with the die input speed. So you'll see, if I actually turn the thing on correctly, you will see that short time frame I was talking about where we input the die at the perfect time. That way we get it in the center of the recipe, and then the 4 glass go right behind it there, which just fits perfectly fine, and it is also within our needed space for the factory here, for the crafter here. You can see there's multiple moving parts here, which did take some time to get, as you saw with a 3-hour time lapse that we had, but at the same time it still works quite well, which I'm very, very happy with. So yeah, that's where that is there. And then we need a frame of reference for where this is in the crafter. This is on the left side that I was talking about. Now we're going to move on to the right side, which is the whole rewire area that I had to do for the new crafter. All right, so this right side here is mainly to give us enough delay to unlock this hopper here for the output as well. So the bare minimum, we need to allow the hopper underneath to be unpowered for 72 game ticks to allow all the items to be output from the crafting table here. So like I said, if we leave 1 in here, then that would continuously stack up, and then over 64 times, which is very, very quickly, your crafter would back up and then would fail because nothing is coming out of the crafter. And then you're just wasting items and stuff like that, which you don't want, obviously. So this circuit here is what gives us enough delay to do that. If we hit the note block up there, you will see that the unlock starts to happen. And then we have it in the hopper. Now, it's in the hopper, it's perfectly fine. You only will miss one item that will be buffered in your crafter, which isn't ideal, but at the same time, it's one item. You're crafting 9,000 per hour. If you're really worried about one item, then you'll need to figure out a way to unlock this hopper for a just a little bit longer of a time. But personally, I don't think it's that big of an issue. So let's show that one more time, but actually from the redstone perspective. So what we'll see here is we'll see this rail line flash once here, and then we'll see this one down here powered twice. So this rail should power twice within 72 game ticks of the whole cycle being completed. And then we have all of the items out of the crafting table. So one more time, let's do it again, and watch the redstone circuit just go all the way down, giving us that lot of delay that we needed. And these 2-tick repeaters, very, very important, because without this crafter would be exponentially longer. I did recently also find out too with this, and I've used it in most of my other crafters as well, is a 2-tick repeater will only give one output for a observer, which is very key because it still takes the initial 4 game ticks to activate this one compared to the 2 game ticks for the 1-tick repeater here. Let's whip up a quick test here. So you can see just how important that 2-tick repeater is in terms of powering anything. It may not seem like a lot, but when you stack these up, each individual 2-tick repeater, it makes a huge difference for when this piston here at the end would get activated. See just how much longer it takes for that piston to activate. The first piston's already retracted by the time this piston activates, which is very, very huge for this delay and the space, keeping it down within 17 blocks of each other. So yeah, we have one more time here where we have one more thing to show off here, which is the reset. So in the schematic here, there is a hopper for the item input here, but just for the demonstration purposes, we put a note block here so that we can visually represent the reset sequence here. It's honestly not too interesting to look at, but at the same time, it is very useful for the internal reset for the crafter itself. So yeah, this gives us enough delay so that when we finally get all of the 8 crafted stained glass out of the crafting table, where this restarts the crafting sequence again, that way this crafter continuously goes on and on and on. Of course, there is no safety feature for this crafter so that where it would automatically turn off if it were to run out of items. What you need to do is hook that up to your shulker box unloaders, and then you would hopefully just power this piston if it were to reach a certain threshold within your shulker box unloaders, which you can set up yourself. It's very easy to do. I've made countless factories that do include it. Also, I made one of my actual autocrafters has it built in because it was such a simple recipe where I had so much space that I could have used inside that same sequence. So I added that into it to just make it that much better. This one, doing that would make the crafter taller, which I didn't want to do. But yeah, that's the full autocrafter broken down. And then of course, once that is there, we're back to the full crafter being inputted all together with those 5 parts broken down. And then we're back to the full functioning 1 wide tie level 9,000 per hour stained glass crafter. So the main factor of actually getting that 9,000 per hour is we can actually input the start of the sequence before we take out all of the glass. That is only because the block under here that's being taken out is the black stained glass. So it will prioritize taking out the black stained glass first rather than the glass that is inside the crafting table itself. But yeah, all in all, this did take me quite some time to do, but I think it's very beneficial for those that need a lot of stained glass if you're doing decoration, floor spawn proofing for a perimeter, or anything that else that requires glass for your actual decorations or things like that. So yeah, like I said, I do plan to make a full-fledged factory that includes every single type of glass from this. That way you can make any type of glass that you want all in one area. But that is for another time. So yeah, that's gonna be it for this episode. Make sure you like, subscribe, all those sorts of things, and I will see you in the next one.